This is Meghan Ottolini with John Lyons. We're filling in for Jones and Keefe today. The guy's taking a couple days off after a very successful Jimmy Fund radio telethon. So shout out to them. This upcoming segment is brought to you by Jackson Lumber and Millwork. Visit Jackson Lumber and Millwork for all your residential remodeling or commercial building materials and supplies. Jackson Lumber and Millwork, providing solutions and delivering results since 1946. So Chris Sims isn't the only person, especially from a national perspective, who I've heard express this sentiment over the last couple of days. Really just yesterday, because Julian Edelman, we all know him quite well, was on Tom Curran's Patriots Talk podcast from NBC Sports Boston. And we're going to get to his comments later on in the show. But he was expressing something similar, which is everybody slow down with your Drake Maye expectations. And I first take issue with what he's saying there, which is New Englanders think that Drake Maye is going to be a top 10 quarterback this year. Do you feel that that's the expectation, John Lyons? Because I would say, like, if Drake is a top 15, if he's in the top half of the league in his second season with everything that he has to go through in terms of a new offense, a new offensive coordinator, pass catchers who are not so improved as a group from compared to last year, that he's actually in a good spot. If he's top 15, top 16, like, that is really good progress for him.
Yeah, I would agree. We're talking about a guy that didn't start until week 6 last year, which was the correct thing to do, as we're seeing with the Colts and Anthony Richardson, right? Sitting some of these guys. But didn't start till week 6, only finished one win, right? That Jets win, Jacoby Brissett finished. The Buffalo win was the Joe Milton, Bills tried to lose game, whatever, but only finished one win. And he had 16 turnovers last year. I mean, again, 10 interceptions, 6 fumbles, lot. Like, the biggest thing for me, and I know if you've listened on EEI, I sound like a broken record, can he cut down on the turnovers? And I know a lot of people are like, can he throw for 4,000 yards and 30 touchdowns and whatever? And yeah, like, I think he should be able to throw for 25 touchdowns or more. But can he get the interception numbers lower? Or can he get the interception numbers similar, but in 17 starts? Like, that's the biggest thing. And you look at him so far this camp. You've been down there pretty much every day. I was down there 5 times, including the joint practice against Washington. It feels like he is progressing, and he looks better than last year. But there's still some of those moments, and the Minnesota first drive is a great example with the high throw and then the overthrow that was almost picked, where you still look at it and you say, okay, there's still some things that need to work on here. The turnover against Washington in the preseason game, too. You still look at it and you say, okay, there's still some things to work on. So if he can get to 14th or 15th, that's a step forward from last
Lyons,
year.
Like, you've been saying that about the turnovers, and a lot of people have said that since the end of his rookie season. The most important thing for Drake Maye is to eliminate those turnovers and be able to take care of the ball. The old Bill Belichick idea of you got to not lose the game before you can be the superhero and win the game. He's mostly been doing that this preseason. And it still feels like people are saying, I'm not seeing enough from him. I hear a lot of people saying, I'm not seeing enough from him. And look, he had the terrible turnover in the preseason game against the Commanders. That was such a bad turnover because he looked inexperienced. He looked like he had no composure. He was trying to do too much at once. Like, everything that he could have done wrong on that play instead of taking the sack, he did wrong, and Vrabel ripped him for it.
Yeah.
But now,
in game, in the halftime
now it feels
interview.
like, honestly, it feels like people are moving the goalposts to me in 2 different directions, where people are saying it's not enough that he had one turnover that was really a tipped pass in the Commanders' joint practice, and other than that, I think he was an A- to B+ in my estimation. And he had 0 turnovers in the joint practices against Minnesota, when if you look at the reports of what was happening with the offensive line there, he was under constant pressure and still looked like the most solid piece of the offense. But then people look at the way that he starts out the Minnesota preseason game against backups and go, 2 high throws. Like, how tall does he think Pop Douglas is? They're moving the goalpost to say that's not enough from him. He's not accelerating fast enough. I'm worried that he's not getting good quickly enough. And then at the same time saying, because of that, I don't think that we should put so much responsibility on Drake this year. Let me say something. Like, the offense hinges on Drake. There's no way around it. There's no way around it. You can talk about how many yards you think Steph Diggs is going to have and whether you think that Will Campbell is going to be able to be a serviceable left tackle. At the end of the day, it really just comes down to what Drake Maye can make out of everything here.
And I think, too, if we're adding the context to it, on that first drive, he had a terrific throw to Travion Henderson that Henderson dropped on that wheel route that would have been a first down. And I thought
safety did close down on top of him like immediately. I mean, some
did,
people thought that was not a hospital ball, but it was a close call.
I thought Maye put that in as good a spot as you could, given the situation. And I thought Maye was better on the second drive as well. And then they went down and scored. And he's not perfect. And I think that's one of the issues here is that a lot of people around here, our frame of reference for quarterback is the best guy ever.
Yeah, forget that.
Like Maye, and even people who talk about like Josh Allen, right? You hear that comparison all the time. Well, first of all, Josh Allen's first couple of years, he was not good at all.
He made the playoffs the second year.
He did, but he wasn't like that. I didn't think he was that good.
You got to look back, Lyons, because the way that we talked about Josh Allen that second year, Brady was still here. And when the Bills came to town, they were a fine team. And we made so much fun of Josh Allen. We were like, the guy is going to concuss somebody who's selling soda up in the stands because his arm is insane and he can't control it. But, like, if you look back at the stats and you look at that team, they were fine. If the Patriots had that season and Drake Maye had that season, I think everybody would be all right with it.
Yeah, I mean, if they're I agree. Like, if they're a playoff team, then, of course, everyone's fine with it. But I would say, even on the Allen point, I think the biggest reason that he's elevated himself from a guy that really was not good early to better to now one of the best in the game is he hasn't turned the ball over as much. Like, if you look at the stats, the yards have always been there, touchdowns have always been there, but he went from having 18 interceptions in 2023 to 6 last year. Like that is the difference in a lot of these guys. And I know that's not sexy, that's not the fun thing and the yards thing, but think about Maye last year. It wasn't just the turnovers, Mego. It was a force-it interception to end the game against Tennessee, a force-it interception to end the game against the Rams, a force-it interception in the end zone against the Bills.
Are you saying it's not just because those are all turnovers? So are you saying it's not just the turnovers, it's when they happen?
That's a big part of it, but I think it also leads to, I think there were times last year where he looked, and he was a rookie, but also he looked around and said, wow, there's not anything around me. And I have to...
And he was right.
And he was right, but then he tried to do too much, and it backfired. And I think now... there's more around. Now, are they an elite operation on him? No, but there's more around him, and he's older. You don't have to do that, and I think the turnover in the Washington game was a good example of that. Can he cut down on maybe that mentality a little bit of I have to do so much? Because you're right in that so much of this season hinges on his development and his growth, and I think a huge part of that is playing a little bit more just kind of in the structure of things, which when he's been good – this training camp, joint practice against Washington, joint practice against the Vikings, those other drives in the preseason games, it feels like he's done a lot more of that.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I took away, and I think you'd probably agree from the Washington practice, was how quickly he got the ball out. Like, that might just be, they might just have to run that McDaniels
He would have
offense.
even been better if it weren't for a few drops in that Washington practice.
Oh,
you and I were there. We saw a few. And that Vikings practice.
From Travion Henderson and Pop Douglas and Mac Hollins.
Yeah.
We're not talking about just like Kyle Williams, who's a rookie trying to figure it out.
And that Vikings defense in those joint practices, whether people want to hear it or not, you could make the case that's the best defense they're going to go against all year. Like Brian Flores, flip a coin with him and Spagnuolo. Those are the two best DCs in the NFL. They've revamped that front seven. They still have a good secondary. The team won 14 games a year ago. So it's good that he went up against a defense like that, and it's good that he performed well in the joint practice. I would have liked to have seen him build on it in that first drive against the Vikings. I felt he did in the second drive, but again, to your point about moving the goalpost, that's kind of the nature of a second-year quarterback that started 26 games in college.
And that's it to me, John, is that, like, other than Mike Sando from The Athletic, I feel like what a lot of people are saying is, without saying is, I don't really know this guy that well. Like, in terms of Drake Maye, I don't totally know who this guy is because we haven't seen very much of him, and I don't know if he knows who he is. He's not even 23 years old. Played 26 games in college.
And
Started
it's third
26
offense
games.
in 3 years.
Started 12 games last year. Missed some time with head injuries. Now has a different offensive coordinator. I feel like people are dancing around like I can set my expectations, but I really don't have a lot of information on exactly who this guy is, even being down there at practice every day. Like, my feeling is Drake gets a little too amped up at some of these games. And when he's under the bright lights, that's where he overthrows guys, and he has to figure out how to like rein that emotion in a little bit. And maybe it can only come through experience. And I agree with you that he has so much of a muscle memory of being like, I'm the big kid out here who's the best athlete, and I always have been. So when these other guys aren't picking it up for me, I got to put it on me for my team. I don't think it's like a selfish hero ball style of thing. I think it's the same thing that Josh Allen had of being, if somebody's going to make it happen, it's got to be me because I'm the best one.
Yeah, and you just go back to last year, per PFF, they allowed 35 sacks total, but 17 of them came against their offensive tackles. So he's used to facing pressure all the time, especially around the edge. He's used to moving around all the time. And I think it's the same conversation, Mego, we've had about the receivers, about the offensive line. They're going to be better, but better doesn't automatically equate to you're great, right? Like Drake Maye is going to be better this year, but that doesn't mean he's automatically going to be the 5th or 6th best quarterback in football. Like if he is the 14th best quarterback in football, that's a step forward. And then if in year 3 he's the 8th or 9th best, that's another step forward. Like that's what you want in the development of these guys. Like, hey, everybody wants Joe Burrow in year 2 to go to the Super Bowl and be awesome. I get it. But very rare. It's usually the other way around where it takes 2, 3, 4 years. Like Lamar Jackson won the MVP his first full year starting. Great. That's more the exception than it is the rule with a lot of these young guys. And we're seeing it with other, like Jaden Daniels had a great year last year. And I know you know that as a Commander, so not a guarantee he's going to have another great year this year.
Dude, everybody around here
Michael
is
Penix,
just, everybody wants Jaden Daniels to feel like spectacularly.
I think it's going to be good, but it's no guarantee. And Michael Penix, right, like didn't start till near the end of last year. Like he's probably going to take some time to develop. Bo Nix, same. Like Bo Nix was good last year. Denver's also an awesome situation for a young quarterback that Drake Maye did not have last year.
I think that the season, I don't want to be, or at least the offense's success, it hinges so much on Drake. And that's just what it is. And offense. People are like, if you're sitting here telling me pump the brakes on Drake Maye, that you don't think he's going to be a really good quarterback this year, then you're telling me that you don't think the offense is going to be good. And those things like have to go hand in hand. And maybe that feels kind of obvious, but I think people have been dancing around it in a way because they don't know who Drake is. And it's okay to say that, but like at some point, we sit here, you had to make a prediction of who he's going to be. I still think I've thought since the beginning of the offseason that this is between a 7 and 9 win team. I think Drake will be pretty good. I think we'll still see a lot of the turnovers. I think some of the accuracy is going to be a problem at times, but I agree that if he works within Josh McDaniel's system and he trusts the coaching, that he's going to be all right, that he's going to be a top 15 quarterback. Is he going to be a top 10 quarterback? I don't think so. If he is, that would be delightful.
In a good way. I'd be pleasantly surprised.
And I think you'd be a playoff team, but I think that you're more like that 7 to 9 range, and a lot of that has to do with Drake. He's figuring it out still, and that's fine.
And we're talking about a team that in the last 2 years combined won 8 games. So if you win 8 this year and you match your win total from the last 2 years combined, that is a step forward. Now, is it the fun divisional round AFC championship game stuff that we were used to for 20 years? No. And me as a Patriots fan, do I want to see them win more than 8? Yes. But if you look at it realistically, if you match your win total this year from the last 2 years combined, that is a step forward with a first-year head coach, a second-year quarterback, and a new offense, and a lot of, let's not forget, young pieces they're relying on to contribute. Travion Henderson's a rookie. Will Campbell's a rookie. Jared Wilson. Right?
Don't get me started with that, man.
But the point is, like, all these guys are either rookies or second-year players. Kayshon Boutte is in his third year and third different offense, right? Like, all these guys are young players that they're relying on, Demario Douglas too, to have a big impact. So there's going to be some points where Maye is inconsistent, but don't you think that there's going to be a game that Demario Douglas is inconsistent or Travion Henderson's quiet for a game or two? Like, that's going to happen. Kyle Williams, I like the player. He's going to be fun. He's going to be quiet for several weeks at a time. Like, that's just the nature of what they're relying on in a lot of these young players.
And we haven't even talked about Steph Diggs and his ongoing beef with Phil Perry from NBC Sports Boston that I heard Cardi B is getting involved with, but that's for another segment. If you want to talk Drake Maye, expectations, how do you feel about So many people saying, hey, pump the brakes with Drake Maye. He's not going to be a top 10 quarterback this year, you crazy New Englanders. 617-779-7937 is the number. Let's go to Tim in Brockton. Tim, how are you feeling about Drake Maye and his expectations?
Expectations are very high with Drake Maye. His ceiling is Trevor Lawrence. I keep telling everybody. And if the only dynamic player on this team that's going to be good this year is going to be Travion Henderson. And when that happens, he will make Drake Maye look better than he would have if he wasn't on this team. Drake Maye shouldn't be held in this high next great thing because he's not that. Patriots fans look embarrassing because they're hopeless on this Drake Maye. He's not going to be anything. His ceiling's Trevor Lawrence, and the player running back probably open him up.
Thank you, Tim. You feel like his ceiling is Trevor Lawrence? To me, that would be a really big problem.
Well, and the weird thing is Trevor Lawrence is supposed to have this high ceiling, and he hasn't reached it.
But like Lawrence.
That's just that whole thing.
And to me, like Caleb Williams is much closer to Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, I'm not a big believer in Caleb Williams.
Drake, like if you're trying to chart Drake, I know everybody talks about Josh Allen. Like Drake might be a little bit more like Jordan Love in terms of his development, in terms of how he goes.
And I think if you look at where Jordan Love is and the direction he's headed, you should want to accept that. Like that's good. Like that would be and again, Jordan Love, to your point, do we look at him as a top 5, top 8 QB? No, but he's consistently gotten better. Maybe now he's hanging around in that 11 to 12 range, 13 with continued development. Maybe he'll be in that 7 to 8 range. And like that's, again, really that's what you can hope to look for.
The biggest thing that we have missed in New England since Brady left is the idea of a quarterback that you're winning because of the quarterback. Not you're winning with the quarterback, you're winning in spite of the quarterback. You never felt like you were winning games because of Mac Jones.
I'm trying to think to a singular game.
Mac never put everybody on his back, and he never had a moment, and he never brought teams back. He had one game.
The Houston game, he came back. That's the only one.
And Houston was dreadful
bad
that year.
Yeah, that was a David Culley.
And so I think people look at Drake and his ability, and they say they're excited about him because they see him as the kind of quarterback like Josh Allen, where because of his physical ability, because he's a nice kid, and his teammates seem to have a very natural affection for him, that he can be a good leader, that he can put the team on his back and bring him back. He hasn't done that yet. Like, he hasn't had to do it.
Yeah.
And he feels a little far from that in terms of his development. So it's not like last year where he's the silver lining. You're watching the games just basically to see what he can do, and anything he does is good, and anything he does poorly is because of the bad situation he's in. He's in a different stage of the development now, and I understand people saying like pump the brakes, but at the same time, if you want to have any hope for the team this year, then you got to have high expectations for Maye.
Yeah, and I think you also have to be realistic.
And by high expectations, I mean being top half of the league.
Yeah, I think you have to be realistic about where they're at in this rebuild. Like, this is a multi-year rebuild, and you could say coaching staff, culture, whatever, they're year 1. Roster, they're like year 2.5 because they brought in Gonzalez in 2023 and some guys last year. But it's like they're not one of those. Like, again, I said Bo Nix and the Broncos. Like, Bo Nix was drafted into a team with a great offensive head coach, a great defense, and playmakers on offense, pretty good O-line. Like, he was drafted into a really good situation. Even Michael Penix drafted into a really good situation for a young quarterback in Atlanta. Daniels, obviously, in Washington. Maye was drafted into the opposite, right? Like, they had just fired the greatest coach of all time. They hired someone who was underqualified. The offensive line, weapons, all that stuff. Defense took a huge step back. I mean, it was about as bad a situation as you can be in for a young quarterback, obviously with Caleb Williams last year, too.
All right, you can jump in with any of your Drake Maye or overall offense thoughts, 617-779-7937. On the other side, there's a national writer out there, as we keep talking about these national perspectives of the Patriots, which are honestly just a lot lower than around here. So maybe everybody talks about how negative the media is around here. I'm starting to see the inverse when you compare them to the national writers and national perspective, as we just heard from Chris Sims there. We have the expectations from one national writer from The Ringer on how much he expects the offense to improve. And get this, can they do it, he says, in spite of the coaching that the team has?